everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, excited to be with you on a special Thursday edition of the show. No show tomorrow, but because of yesterday with Christmas, and obviously, first and foremost, what am I doing? Hope everybody out there had a phenomenal Christmas and amazing holidays. Still going on. As far as I'm concerned, holidays extend all the way to New Year's, okay? Like people say, like I have a local radio station I listen to. Yes, I'm old school. I still listen to the radio along with streaming services, of course. And then they, December 26th today, they cut out Christmas music. Hate it. I'm totally against it. As far as I'm concerned, Christmas music should go from November 1st to January 1st. There, that's all my soapbox. We got a lot to talk about, though, in the world of sports today. I got to say, NBA delivered. There's no question about that. The NBA had, we'll talk about this in our second segment. The TV ratings were up. The product was great. LeBron and Steph did what LeBron and Steph do, and that's put on a phenomenal show for everybody watching. Get into that in about 12 minutes. Also, Baltimore and Houston. Man, what a dud that was. Concerns about Houston. Baltimore, I think they've kind of found their mojo and found their winning ways that I've been trying to tell them to go after for about the last couple of months. Get into that. And of course, NFL predictions, week 17. We got a game tonight with the Seahawks and the Bears. Sneaky, interesting little tidbit I'd like to throw in when we get to that pick. And obviously, the games later today. Bryson's Bleak Bet, upset of the week, and of course, my favorite segment in the world, If I Were a Bettin Man, looking for another winning week in week 17 as we come down to the end of the regular season. So let's get started. But first, yeah, I'm wearing my Steelers hat. Yeah, I'm wearing black, not just to match Steelers hat, but as a sign of mourning. And I'll get to Pittsburgh in about 8 minutes or so. I did want to start with the champs, though, Kansas City, who blew out my Steelers 29-10 yesterday. I did pick Kansas City to win. I thought the Steelers maybe would cover and make it sort of interesting at home. No. But as far as the Chiefs, I told you so. I told you so. All season long, when it feels like, and I couldn't register this in my brain, really since the start of the season, is the fact that Kansas City, well, let's see. Yeah, they got off to kind of a slow start offensively. That was mostly because of injuries to Rashee Rice. DeAndre Hopkins wasn't there yet. The offensive line, the edges was horrendously bad. Okay, let's see what we got here. The defense is playing well, and now the offense for midseason started coming to form. Mahomes is looking more like Mahomes, and the defense taking a little bit of a downturn, but then special teams is making plays, and then the special teams has gotten beat up. Harrison Butker's hurt, but then Mahomes is picking them up in games, and it culminates in they're 15-1 and the top seed in the conference for the fourth time in the last 7 years. And yet the narrative all season long, man, what is wrong with Kansas City? I mean, they remind me so much of the 2020 Steelers. Dare I say, they may collapse like the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles did after starting 10-1, and all the nonsense surrounding this team all season long when what was happening was right in front of you, so plainly obvious. The thing with the Kansas City Chiefs is they're just like every dynasty. Just like the Steph Curry-led Golden State Warriors, just like the Tom Brady-led New England Patriots, just like the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls. Sometimes you go through stretches in the regular season when you're a multi-time defending champion, and if you're Jordan's Bulls, you got a Charlotte, and if you're Brady's Patriots, you got a Cleveland, and when you're Steph's Warriors, you go to Sacramento. And the games don't really mean that much. You're taking them seriously. You gotta crank it into another gear once it gets tight. Last 5 minutes of the game, let's go win it. But for the other team, it's their Super Bowl. It's the biggest game of their season. It's a sold-out stadium, sold-out arena, whatever the case may be. And all season long, the Chiefs were the best third down offense, and they were efficient in the red zone, and Mahomes has cut back on the turnovers. And, it's funny. This game really meant a lot to the Chiefs because if they win this game, they wrap up the 1 seed and not have to risk playing next week against a desperate Broncos team. What we're going to do is we're just going to unload the offense. Mahomes is going to have a passer rating well into the 120s, QBR of 90, and Travis Kelce's going to have his best game of the season because, that's what dynasties do. The idea that there was something wrong with this team. Now, by the way, whenever Kansas City played poorly in a win, I called it out. I did. When they beat the Raiders on that game on Black Friday, when Vegas bobble, snap, and whatever. Listen, I don't think the Raiders would have won the game because I think Carlson would have missed the long field goal based on struggles. But my thing was, Kansas City didn't play very well. Mahomes didn't look that good. The defense was shaky. They didn't play that well. Oh, it's funny when the Detroit Lions win a game like that. They're gritty, tough, and well coached. When the Chiefs do it, they're lucky. Oh, it's funny. When the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens look as good as a football operation can function on a Sunday, or in this case, Wednesday, Merry Christmas. It's, man, MVP front runner. They're going to beat the Chiefs. They're winning the Super Bowl. Lamar's going to break through. Allen's going to get Buffalo the first ring for the Chiefs. It's, oh, well, what call did they get in their favor this week? It's like, guys, I get if you don't like the Chiefs. Listen, I'm a Steelers fan. Duh, I was pulling for my team to win. You know how excited I would have been coming in today's show? We knocked off the champs. We beat Kansas City. We're going to win the AFC North. Unfortunately, I can't say that today. More on the Steelers in a few minutes. If you don't like the Chiefs, a lot of people don't like the Chiefs. Don't get it as much as I didn't get the Patriots and Warriors thing. Whatever. But don't sit up here and act like, oh, there's some real problems here. First, they'll be one and done in the playoffs. I actually learned today. I was watching a TV show today. I love myself some Draymond Green. That's my guy. I love Draymond. Ride or die. I saw Draymond Green said recently that the Chiefs will be one and done in the playoffs. Draymond, you're a dynasty member. You can catalyst a dynasty. You can't be going out here saying stuff like that. They were revving it up, seeing what worked. Okay, we're going to get Xavier Worthy involved. Some games our defense is going to get the job done. Some games our offense is going to get the job done. Sometimes neither's going to show up, and the special team saves us at the end against Denver. Sometimes, Harrison Butker will hit a walk-off to beat Cincinnati way back in week 2. Oh, it's the refs. Doesn't it seem like that's always the excuse that we hear about the great teams? You never hear that the refs have it in the bag for the bad teams. Doesn't seem like to be a little connectivity there in the sense that, yeah, the great teams just find ways to win games. And if the officiating call goes their way, they take advantage, unlike the bad teams. Because there's bad calls that go against teams literally every single game of a regular season in any sport, because the refs, for their pro refs are miles better than college refs. They're still human. They still make horrendously bad calls from time to time, or no calls in some instances. If the Kansas City Chiefs may very well go out in the playoffs. I would be stunned if they go out in round 1 or 2 at this point, because they have a first round bye. But they may go out in the AFC title game, which would, by the way, be the worst season in the Mahomes era. That's how high they've set the bar. But to act like they're not the obvious favorites to win the AFC. Oh, let's see. Buffalo. By the way, I think Buffalo is absolutely the biggest contender to knock off Kansas City in the AFC. Buffalo can't play defense. Buffalo, have you watched the Bills last few weeks? Drake May, who's had a good rookie season, just went up and down the field in that Bills defense. Jared Goff torched him. Stafford torched him. Now, these are good quarterbacks, but you can't be winning playoff games where Josh Allen's going to drop 45 a game. It's not sustainable. And by the way, don't we have some questions about McDermott situationally? Don't we have a million questions about Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Are they going to show up? Houston's DOA, forget about them. Pittsburgh, we literally saw it yesterday. They just don't have enough offense. There's no other way around it. By the way, Steelers defense has been rough the last few weeks, okay? Look down the list. The Chargers, maybe. I'm a Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert fan. They just don't have enough players offensively. And Denver, now Cincinnati, you can make a case, but Cincinnati has a worse defense than Buffalo all season long. So look up and down the AFC. That's not to say they can't be beat. It's to say, I remember talking about this on Monday's show, the Chiefs are the front runners in Vegas. It's like, duh. Yeah, let's see. They got the best quarterback, coach, best record, top scoring defense in the NFL. You know what? They're probably the best team in football, and they're probably the favorite to win the Super Bowl again. Is that when you play, if you combine, I remember talking about this with the Warriors in the past. And the Chiefs remind me so much of Golden State. It's not even funny. When you combine the playoff games that the Chiefs have played in the Mahomes era since 2018, when they've kind of made that first, they didn't make the Super Bowl that year, but made their first AFC title game with Patrick. If you combine those games, it makes it makes an entire other regular season. Like when I hear, the Niners have played so many games. Chiefs played more games the last 5 to 6 years, as opposed to what San Francisco has played. It's a sustained excellence. It's a well-run operation that drafts well, but it ultimately comes down to that dude wearing number 15 and the guy with the mustache on the sidelines. It's those two guys. If I've got those two, I feel great about any time that I feel. If I've got a dog in the fight and I'm pulling for Kansas City, which obviously I won yesterday, go Steelers, but the Chiefs were my Super Bowl pick, I feel great. I got a Mount Rushmore quarterback, a Mount Rushmore coach in their peak, in their prime, with the clear frontrunners to win the AFC. And by the way, unlike last year, that's one thing too, and then we'll move to Pittsburgh. The thing that I just logically could not reconcile with those who felt like the Chiefs were just this average team that just got lucky every week, which was absurd, was that we do realize they looked way worse last year. Like, we talk about, the Chiefs win close games. They were losing these games last year. The Chiefs lost. This is kind of hard to believe at this point when the fact they've lost once in 365 days and counting. They lost 6 games last year. They lost to the Raiders. They had a weird loss against Green Bay. That was kind of when Jordan Love was on the come up. Buffalo always beats in the regular season. That's just what happens. They lost to Russell Wilson in Denver. They had some weird losses last year where you're like, man, they look pretty vulnerable right now. Even I, as the guy who picked the Chiefs last year, was like, I don't know how great I feel about this. As much as I love Mahomes, I don't know if this team has enough offense. And then they beat the 11-win Dolphins, the 11-win Bills on the road, the 13-win Ravens on the road, and the 12-win 49ers, who I thought had the best roster in football last season in the Super Bowl. And we don't think they can do it this year with a better team, way better offense, with home field advantage and a first-round bye against a vulnerable AFC. Call me crazy. I'm going to go on a limb and say Chiefs probably pretty safe bet to bare minimum get to the AFC title game, which, again, if I may say once again, that's the worst year in a Patrick Mahomes era. That's the baseline. That's really when seasons start for Kansas City. So, man, all season long, what's wrong with the Chiefs? I don't know. They're kind of good when they have to be, like literally always. There's something to do with it. Having the best quarterback and coach, kind of like when they have with the Patriots had Brady and Bill, Kerr and Curry, like that's kind of Jackson and Jordan. It's kind of how it works in sports. You get the best player and best coach, you tend to be quite successful, even when it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. And that's one thing. You know what? I'll save that. I'll save that take. I'll save that for future reference. Because let's go and look at the comments here, and then I'll transition to the Steelers. You know what? Patrick trolls me about Russell Wilson, but he's got every right to today. And I'll get in him just a second. Happy Thursday. Hope all is well. Steelers Nation, let's weld. Mr. Limited was... That about says it all. My man, John Rivera, shout out to John Fan Perspective Podcast. He says, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas to you and yours, John, and obviously to all those watching and listening. Bill Carson, who's obviously a Chiefs fan, in the comments. God bless the Chiefs. Man, it must be nice to be a Kansas City fan. I experienced a little bit of that as a Warriors fan, so I feel you there, Bill. Patrick, new articles are available as well. Absolutely check out Patrick's articles on the Grid Network website, some Christmas-themed ones as of late. Want to transition to Pittsburgh, and then we'll move to the second game, Baltimore and Houston. So, look, I got duped. What can I say? I got duped. I mean, I've been a Steelers fan for not very long in the scheme of things, since July of 2023. Folks know I became I was a Cowboys fan as a young boy. Jerry Jones alienated me in 2020. I was a huge Dak Prescott fan coming out of college. The fact that those two intersected was like, oh my gosh, here we go. He's going to win Super Bowls. It obviously hasn't worked out to that degree. I still am a massive Dak fan. Once I saw Jerry wasn't intent on winning football games, and once I found out that wasn't his top priority, or not found out, was reinforced that wasn't his top priority, I'm like, okay, I'm going to support Dak for the rest of his career. If that involves being the Cowboys, so be it. I got to go find a new team. I decided to be a Steelers fan. Don't regret that decision whatsoever. Great fan base, great culture, great championship culture, great coach, the whole bit. But there does seem to be a bit of paranoia in Pittsburgh. And what I mean by that is you hear it every year. You heard it this season. Even despite the fact that the Steelers, prior to the last 3-game skid, losing to all 3 Super Bowl contenders, Philly, Baltimore, and Kansas City, even when the Steelers were playing really good footballs, getting off to a 10-2 start, it was, hey, Tomlin, no losing seasons. Now, for those that maybe are new to the show, freaking love Mike Tomlin. Elite A+++++ motivator, has his guy ready to play each and every Sunday. Again, Maybe yes, because yesterday was Wednesday. Maybe that was because why was the exception. But didn't show up to the party, and Kansas City is a dynasty. But ready to go, elite culture builder. He gets the best out of his group. Tomlin is a top 5 coach of football. Stand by that. 10 toes down. But as a collective, the Steelers organization, this isn't just a Tomlin thing. It's an organizational thing. And this may take multiple years to bear out, because I was far more harsh on Tomlin and the Steelers last year when it was, God, you are so limited at quarterback. Your OC stinks, and you are just stuck in like 2005 style football. Run it and play defense. It's like, guys, quarterback's league, you need a quarterback. Well, they got Arthur Smith, who I think has done a fantastic job with the Steelers. Okay, that helps. Arthur Smith can be back next year. Great. You get Russell Wilson, get Justin Fields. Those are upgrades from last year. I think at this point, and I was under the assumption, hey, this quarterback draft coming up is pretty weak. I mean, it's Shedeur Sanders who's going to go number 1 to the Giants. Maybe Cam Ward. I don't buy Ewers at all, out of Texas. Beck, I didn't buy prior to the injury. I certainly don't buy him post-injury. Riley Leonard is like a second, third rounder, maybe. I potentially, I don't even know if he's eligible for this year's draft. Maybe could be have good value there, second, third round. It's a weak quarterback draft. Extend Russell, 2-year extension, draft somebody in 2026. I think at this point that'd be a mistake, because the question you have to ask if you're a Steelers fan is this, or for the Steelers organization, more importantly. The Steelers aren't going to win the AFC North. Baltimore's not going to lose to Cleveland. That would be an all-time choke job if they did. Baltimore's going to beat Cleveland, wrap up the North. The Steelers are in the playoffs regardless, so we're in. Great. Could be the 5 seed. Won't be the 7 seed in all likelihood. So you put yourself in a spot where you're in the playoffs. Hopefully Tomlin and the Steelers can break the long playoff losing drought. But what's the ceiling next year with Russell Wilson? What is the objective if you don't have a young quarterback in the building, which the draft is so weak, I don't think you will. Just watch, rinse, repeat this year. And what good does that do you? Get you another high first-round pick, a low first-round pick, so that, oh, wait a second, like the top 3-4 quarterbacks are off the board. I am in no way implying the Steelers should tank. I'm saying the path that the franchise has been going the last 5 years or so, that's not going to get the Steelers back to winning Super Bowls. And that's the standard. Tomlin says it. The standard is the standard. That's not going to get them back there. Maybe you could find good value in the late first-round pick. Heck, Lamar Jackson was the last pick of the first round, 2018. Heck, the GOAT, the greatest ever, Tom Brady, 6th-round pick. Not to say that you can't find value outside the top 10 picks, but you sure have a lot better job, especially in the Steelers organization that has a history of great quarterback play in Super Bowls and all that. Of course you can develop those guys or have a better chance than like a Bears or a Raiders or somebody. My solution would be this. Let Russell walk. Bring back Justin Fields on like a 1-year deal. I think the Steelers have already declined his option. They're not going to franchise tag him. That would be insanity. Bring back Justin Fields. Tell Justin, hey, you're a guaranteed starter. Justin's going to get offers in free agency. Justin's going to have a market, maybe from like Vegas or other teams. Pittsburgh, I don't know. You're comfortable here. You're guaranteed the starting job. You were pretty successful. You're 4-2 with us. Roll with Justin Fields. See what happens. The ceiling's not terribly high with Justin. See what you got there. Maybe there's something. Give him a full season with Arthur Smith and then draft a guy in 2026. It's a long-term process, but that's how champions are built. That's how the Steelers have done it, by and large, over the course of their franchise. To me, it is almost a disrespect of the roster. I may be in the minority here. I still think the Steelers have a really talented roster. I know the defense doesn't play well as of late. My guy TJ Watt has been pretty quiet the last few games. I don't know if I know he's beat up, but everybody's beat up at this point of the season. Defensive line's elite. Defensive backfield outside of Minka Fitzpatrick, I got some real questions at this point. But offensively, Pickens, I'd really like if we got another receiver so we don't just have to rely on George. Running game's great. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, love that. Okay, the Steelers have addressed the O-line in the draft. Continue to do that. Draft an O-lineman in the first round 2025. Love that. Bolster that unit. It's critical to protect a future asset who's hopefully the face of the franchise in Pittsburgh. But you're kind of wasting what you have now. And if nothing else, maybe TJ's certainly untouchable. He's the best defensive player in football. But maybe there are guys in the roster that you could move. You know, maybe some veterans. Like if Cam Hayward, God bless him. I love Cam Hayward. If Cam's like, man, I love Pittsburgh. I'd like to win a ring before I get out. Man, you're going to do you're going to do give a man of the year guy the dignity to say, hey, give me an opportunity to play elsewhere. Again, this conversation may not come till next season, but this needs to be a long-term process for Pittsburgh, because the fact of the matter is, if Pittsburgh gets the 5 seed, I think we're beating Houston. Houston's a mess right now. Bat's getting to them in just a second. They're not beating Kansas City at Arrowhead. They're not beating Buffalo at Highmark. Stop. Maybe against the Ravens just because of the familiarity and Lamar's playoff history. Maybe. But we saw Russell against Lamar and the Ravens last time. Yikes. 2 brutal turnovers. By the way, a bad turnover yesterday against Kansas City. Steelers need to start thinking more long-term as opposed to let's try and get just the most we can out of this season, and maybe it'll result in a Super Bowl, and then watch, rinse, repeat next year. It's a broken form of business. And so, listen, I think Omar Khan's a great GM. Tomlin's a phenomenal coach. I think Arthur Smith's been a really good OC. I love the hire when we brought him in. I haven't been disappointed. It's just too many limitations at quarterback. Russell is who he is. I'm not going to get mad at him. He is who he is. And I got duped. I thought the Steelers could be a potential contender. I thought maybe playing the form of football they were playing could be sustainable. It's really not. It's not. So, listen, God bless Russell. He'll get another opportunity elsewhere. There's no question about that. I just don't think that it's in the best interest of the Steelers to bring him back, because I don't see what the point is. I don't see what the ceiling is. I mean, if it's preserved the non-losing season streak, then I start to have questions about people's priorities. I don't think that's the coach Mike Tomlin is. Finish season strong, beat Cincinnati. Hope you beat Houston in the first round of the playoffs, and then your season probably comes to an end at the hands of Mahomes or Josh Allen. That's in all likelihood how it ends. Listen, I love my Steelers. Thought maybe we could pull some off this year. Just not enough firepower at the most important position. And I kind of alluded to that last week when we lost to Baltimore. Is like, man, obviously everyone and their grandmama knows that Lamar's miles better than Russell Wilson. Duh. But just to see it on a screen, on a television screen for 3 hours, it's like, God, it's not even remotely close. And when the two franchises are similarly built, great rosters, coaches, organizations, GMs, and then there's that one separating factor. And I've said it for 3 years on this show. Since 2021, it's a quarterbacks league. It's time the Steelers start to adjust that. I think they've slowly but surely done that. I don't think the answer's in the 2025 draft. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a diamond in the rough somewhere that I have no idea about who's going to win 3 Super Bowls in Pittsburgh. I doubt it. The answer's likely, I feel like, in 2026, build for the future. That's not tanking. Build for the future. Victory lap. F the Chiefs. Listen, if people say F the Chiefs, listen, I got it. People are sick of dynasties. The Warriors fan, I'm Chiefs fans, I'm right there with you. Simpatico. I understand that. They hate us because they ain't us, right? Like, I get that. What bothered me, not that sentiment. What bothered me was, they're just not that good. I'm like, guys, are you watching the games? Are you watching the football games? Let's transition now to the second game, Baltimore and Houston. I have more of an overarching take on the Texans, in particular CJ Stroud. Quickly with Baltimore. So, listen, and again, I still have skepticism about Lamar in the playoffs, and I freaking love Lamar Jackson. Love the guy. He's won 2 MVPs. This is his best year. Like, I think Josh Allen should be MVP just based on the load that he's carried. But Lamar Jackson's been, if they give it to Lamar, I will feel like it should have went to Josh, but I don't have an issue with it. Lamar's been great. I mean, 39 pass touchdowns, 4 picks. Are you kidding me? Number 1 in QBR, top 3 in passing yards. Lamar's been awesome. With the Ravens, though, and I've been saying this for the last 2 months, it's like the inconsistencies, the defenses is showing up. Justin Tucker's off. Justin Tucker looks to have found his game back. It appears. I mean, maybe went through a little bit of slump. Looks like he's back out of it. Lamar's been great mostly start to finish this year. But the key to this Ravens offense, for as phenomenal as Lamar Jackson is, the best player on their team, most valuable in their team, most valuable in the league 2 of the last 5 seasons. That offense runs through big number 22, Derrick Henry, King Henry. And I showed this stat a few months ago. It's now been updated to what it looks like now. The key to the Ravens winning. You got this monster in the backfield. Maybe give him the football very often. Give Derrick Henry the ball. We'll show you this graphic. Great job by Al for putting this graphic together. Derrick Henry gets 20 or more carries. Ravens are undefeated. He gets less than 20 carries. Losing record. 7-0 when Derrick Henry gets 20 carries or more. If he gets less than that, they're 4-5. I mean, Lamar Jackson, like for as crazy he was, this is going to sound crazy, he completed 10 passes. Like it was like an Anthony Richardson on steroids type stat line. It was kind of weird. I mean, you look at Lamar, it's kind of weird. 10 for 15, $168, 2 tuds, no interceptions. QBR literally couldn't have, I mean, it could have been, but not really. QBR 0 to 100 of 99.8. Come on now. Passer rating of 143.9. And Lamar, by the way, had 87 yards rushing and a touchdown. But this is a Derrick Henry-led offense. For as fantastic as Lamar is, that's the backbone of the Baltimore Ravens. By the way, I bagged on Baltimore's defense all season long. They're missing Mike McDonald. What's going on? Since the bye, they give up 14 to the Giants, which at this point is almost like a down performance. It's like the Giants are so bad, 14 is actually, you want to hold them under that. 17 given up against Pittsburgh. And really, the Ravens' defense shut out the Texans. The only 2 points Houston got was obviously on the safety when Derrick Henry was tackled in the end zone early in the game. The Ravens' defense looks to be not what it was last year when they were like historically great. They've kind of found their own in that, oh, okay, there's the classic Baltimore Ravens great defense. So that's kind of my take on the Ravens. They're going to win the AFC North. They're going to close out against Cleveland next week, much to my chagrin, and they're going to be, in all likelihood, the 3 seed in the conference. But for Houston, listen, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. I have caught flack for this on social media. I have caught flack for this even in inner circles with some of my friends and compadres in this space. But it is time, it's been time, that we have an honest conversation about CJ Stroud. Now, if the premise of said conversation is, man, he just may not be a franchise quarterback, that I disagree with. I'm not in any way going there. But I was one of the few who pushed back at the end of last season, despite how great CJ Stroud was. Pass rating over 100, led what we thought to be a terrible Texans team to the playoffs, off his rookie of the year, deservedly so. Meanwhile, the guy selected ahead of him, Bryce Young, was nothing short of atrocious in Carolina. I said before that draft, I want to make myself abundantly clear, I thought Stroud was the better prospect. He's bigger. He has a stronger arm. He moves well. I thought Stroud was going to be the best guy. What I pushed back against after last year was, God, I mean, what the heck were the Panthers doing? Well, we don't know what CJ would have looked like in Carolina and Bryce Young in Houston. We don't know what that would have looked like. And for the record, remember Bryce Young had that he basically had a continuation of his rookie year in the first 2 games of the season. Bryce was awful. The Panthers were getting smashed, getting their teeth kicked in. Awful. Bench him for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, God bless him, knock on wood for him, was in a car accident. Well, the Panthers are forced to put Bryce Young back in since week 8. So week 8 was when Bryce Young came back in. This is when the uncomfortable conversation starts. Can we look at Bryce Young and CJ Stroud? Let's look at Stroud first. Let's look at Stroud since week 8. So since Bryce was brought back off the bench, CJ Stroud, 8-8 touchdown interception ratio, not good at all. 216 pass yards per game, 58% completion, yikes. Passer rating of 76 since week 8. This is a 2-month sample size, folks. This is a lot of football games. 76 passer rating. Bryce Young, on the other hand, has been the objectively better quarterback. Less pass yards per game, but more touchdowns, less picks, so better touchdown interception ratio by definition. 3% better completion percentage, even though 61% ain't great. It's better than Stroud. And a pass rating of 83, which is far from special, but again, better than Stroud. Now, we could talk about, the Texans offensive line. Did you watch it last year? Wasn't that good last year? And for the record, I don't know, is Bryce Young out here working with the Great Wall of Dallas? Okay, is he throwing to the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers, Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson, and hand the ball off to, well, Aaron Jones hasn't been great. Chuba Hubbard's actually been really good, and that's kind of been the backbone of Carolina's offense. What I am saying is the conversations of Stroud's miles better than Bryce Young, a bit too premature. Now, again, Stroud's going to bounce back next year. I have no doubts of it. I think a lot of what happened with CJ, and I'm not faulting him for it, this happens to a lot of athletes, happens to a lot of young people who are successful almost instantly. Maybe get to his head a little bit. Remember he did on that, they went on that podcast tour with Micah Parsons. They were sumo wrestling overseas. And I think he went out. I think there was a whole thing where CJ went out with Amber Rose, and that was a big press TMZ, brouhaha, whatever, the whole thing. let the success get to his head a little bit. By the way, who can blame him? I mean, guys don't just step in the NFL, win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and lead a bad team, or what we perceive to be a bad team, to the playoffs immediately. That's not usually how it works in the NFL. But the gap is a lot closer than folks thought it could be last year. And the idea that Bryce was just, this horrendously bad. There's a reason he was the first pick. Okay, the guy was awesome in Alabama. Oh, Alabama. Ohio State. Like, that's the thing we keep going to. Like, if you want to take CJ because he's the bigger, stronger athlete, which is why I took him, have at it. Got no problem with it. But the results as of late, Bryce has been better. With, by the way, we could talk about CJ's O-line. He still has Nico Collins. He still has Joe Mixon. He still has Dalton Schultz. D'Amico Ryans, don't kind of all acknowledge. Really smart head coach. Good defense yesterday notwithstanding. I mean, is Carolina, a contender exactly? Margins are pretty thin between those two. And as of late, you can argue, matter of fact, the numbers would back this up, Bryce has been the better quarterback. And so I think it's going to be really interesting. And by the way, Bryce now, he's got Dave Canales, who I've said for about a year on the show. I think Dave Canales is one of the smartest young coaches. That's going to be a name that everybody's going to know or should know sooner rather than later. That guy knows offense, knows quarterbacks. Once we roll into year 3 with these two guys, it's going to be kind of all right, CJ's accomplished more. He's been to playoffs, won a playoff game. He's more physically gifted. But based on how last year finished, one guy outplayed the other. Now we got Bryce has 2 games. CJ has 1. I doubt CJ's regular season is probably over. Houston's going to rest their guys because they've wrapped up the division. They're going to get CJ ready for the playoffs. Bryce got 2 games left. Wouldn't be shocked if Carolina won one of them. I'm just saying, uncomfortable conversations we've got to have. What do we got? Victory lap with Henry. They can take down the Chiefs. Oh, sure. If they stick with that, because that was the thing with the big criticism of Baltimore last year. Was like, man, why they abandon the run? And that's kind of what Kansas City, people talk about, the Chiefs did nothing offensively in the second half of that game. I'm one of the few that believe that was by design. They pulled a full-on Bill Belichick. We're like, we're just going to let you guys vomit all over yourselves and screw up, and we're just going to take advantage of your mistakes. And the Ravens' big screw up last year was, Lamar played poorly, but also, why did they just completely abandon the run game? Surely they'll have learned from their mistake this time. Patrick, Houston, there's a big problem. Failure launch, and we'll be one and done. This stretch of football has been unwatchable. Much as I love C.J. Stroud, it's been a sophomore slump. And victory laps, the second year is usually harder as teams make adjustments. It is, but at the same time, you can make the case, hey, don't teams have more film on Bryce Young? By the way, bad film on Bryce Young. And he's been able to adjust. I mean, with Canales, again, some of these guys, Adam Thielen, good veteran presence. Like you're starting to see now, again, do I trust the owner in Carolina at all? No. I think Tepper's the worst owner in the NFL. So that's what worries me. But I think the coach is right. I think Carolina needs to, this upcoming draft, really make sure they bolster the O-line, maybe get I'm not sure what the draft looks like as it relates to, to wide receivers. Maybe get a guy from Ohio State. That's never a bad bet. That would be, Carolina's on the come up. And I don't really know what to do with you. I think as a collective, we can kind of chalk this up for the Texans as, a lot of people thought they're going to take that next step, and this is why I pushed back. I actually had the Texans as a one-and-done team coming into the season. Had them as a playoff team, division champion, but one-and-done was, it doesn't usually go from playoff win and bam, Super Bowl. You don't go from awful playoffs, Super Bowl in a 3-year span. That usually doesn't work that way. I mean, unless you get Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but that's a really special exception. They're a little too young. We can chalk this up to sophomore slump collectively. Next year, I think there's going to be more pressure on Houston. At least I will feel that way, where it's like, okay, good first year, kind of just move on for the second bad year. Let's forget that happened, or at least not forget it happened, learn from the mistakes, and then move on. So that's my takes kind of from the 2 games yesterday. 30 minutes of content in what was 2 blowouts, but nonetheless, entertaining football. Nonetheless, well, not as entertaining as we would hope, but it's football. We love football. All right, be back in a minute on Carving Up Live. Going to talk some NBA Christmas action. Warriors, Lakers. Darn, the Warriors keep failing Steph. We get to that in just a second. Stay tuned for Carving Up Live. We're just getting started here, baby. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So, yeah, listen, as much as the NBA has caught a lot of bad press over the last couple of weeks or so, yesterday was really good day for the league. So, yeah, the first game with the Knicks and Spurs. Obviously, the NBA is better when the Knicks are good, and the Knicks are really good this year with Brunson and Cat and Mikal Bridges and others. And then to have the future star of your league, the future face of your league, Victor Wembanyama. What was the stat line? What was it, like 42 and 18 or something? 42 points, 18 boards for Wemby. By the way, he had 4 blocks in this game. It was a +7. The Spurs came up short to the Knicks because the Knicks are a better team. But listen, I mean, he's lived up to the hype. Wemby is just as good as advertised, and this is why he was touted as the best prospect since LeBron James back in 2003. He's thus far, that's what we're getting. And the kid's like, can he drink yet? I mean, he's maybe in France he can. I don't know, but not in the United States. Special player. And then you had what was the second game? Timberwolves Mavericks, which a little bit of steam was taken out of that because Luka got hurt, but it was still fun. And Edwards was really good because he is an excellent player. Kyrie dropped 39. Klay Thompson, listen, Klay may no longer be a Warrior. I still love my Warriors, and Klay Thompson's a 4-time champion there. Congrats to Klay for passing Reggie Miller on the all-time three-point makes list. I got to say, Klay didn't like how you referred to Reggie as the GOAT shooter. Didn't like that one bit. Didn't like that one gosh darn bit. Okay, nonetheless, congrats to Klay Thompson. Sixers upset the Celtics. That I don't think anybody saw that coming with Philly struggles, and Embiid got hurt again, this time pregame, but Philly stepped up. Maxey, my favorite player in the Sixers, was phenomenal. 33 points, 12 of 23 from the field. See if Philly get this. We're still in December, obviously. They can dig themselves out of the hole. Boston in a little bit of a rut. It happens, even to the best teams. Later the night, Suns beat the Nuggets. Suns beat Denver in Phoenix. Both Beal and KD dropped 27. So there you go. On the other games, obviously, we want to focus on the game that was the most anticipated. Because the fact of the matter is we're not going to get many more of these matchups left between the great Steph Curry and the great LeBron James, in which the Lakers won 115-113 last night in Golden State. And both stars showed up and both stars showed out. LeBron James, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 12 of 22 from the field, 2 of 4, including a really big 3 late from three-point range. Steph Curry was, Steph Curry. He had 38 points, 6 assists, 14 of 24 for the field, 8 of 15 from three-point range. So everybody's going to talk today, and rightfully so, about these 2 greatest players ever. I think LeBron's the GOAT. I got Steph at number 6 all time with an opportunity. If Steph gets another title, I think it's going to be really hard to keep him out of that. It's going to be impossible to keep him out of top 5. Come on. But into that maybe Mount Rushmore-esque area. Like he's putting himself in that position. But it's so funny. Oftentimes during the holiday season and during Christmas yesterday, or whatever holiday you celebrate, it comes time to reflect on yourself individually. What am I doing right? What I need to be focused on? That's where New Year's resolutions, which I'm not crazy on. If you're going to change your life, let's do it now. Let's not wait till the new year. But you kind of reflect on things. And in about 30 minutes after it kind of sunk in, I'm a diehard Warriors fan, those of you don't know. So obviously I was bummed at this latest loss in what has been a rough month and a half for Golden State. I'm like, I have bashed the Lakers for the last few years on my show. And the bad offseason moves by Pelinka and the coaching mishaps and what the heck were you doing hiring Darvin Ham? What are you thinking? And the organization's kind of dysfunctional, and Jeannie Buss, I don't know how that works, and the Rambuses have too much of a say, and LeBron's getting older, and AD got hurt last night. I've just been throwing stones at the Lakers when I live in a glass house with my Golden State Warriors. And the reason I say that is because if you look at since 2019, 2020, both franchises have won a championship. The Lakers won a title that year, 2019, 2020. The Warriors won a couple of years after that. As poorly run as the Lakers have been, and I'm not insinuating the Warriors are poorly run. I'm saying the poorly run Lakers have actually done business better than the Warriors as of late. Can we show what the Lakers have been since 2019, 20? Amazing. Won championship in 20, and then a lot of first round exit the next year, missed the playoffs the year after that, got to the conference finals 2 years ago, first round exit last season. And then you look at Golden State, 15-50. There's kind of an asterisk next to that because Steph Curry played 4 or 5 games that year, but missed playoffs, another missed playoffs, won the title, then second round exit, then miss playoffs. Now, there's injuries that have factored in, suspensions. You can talk about a number of things. Here's what I know. And I'm about to make the most obvious statement that anybody on sports content creation, television, podcasting, radio, etc., print will make. Steph Curry's a great basketball player. I don't know if that was anything that people had a read in before the game. Steph Curry's pretty freaking awesome. I just gave you 38 points, hit 8 3-pointers, hit the game-tying three, which got a double bang from the legend, the GOAT, Mike Breen. Man, the Mike Breen-Steph Curry tandem has been iconic for a long time now, of course. But they can't get a stop at the end on Austin Reeves, who had a triple-double. Austin Reeves is a good player, but man, it's triple-double? Dang. I mean, shout out to Austin. But wow. I've been bagging on the Warriors since probably the end of last season until now. Is that, yeah, you can say they've done everything right by the book. They did get a championship. Hindsight is starting to look like, yeah, that was mostly just on the back of Steph's greatness, as opposed to, hey, depth and veterans. Those contributed. Wiggins stepped up. We know this. And Draymond's valuable, and Clay hit a few shots. That was a very different championship. Same dynasty, different championship from the three prior, where it was deepest roster in basketball in 2015, and then unstoppable, just monster in 2017 and 18. 22, that was on the back of one of the greatest players who's ever done it. I said during the offseason, Steph Curry's about to be 37 years old in March. You have a very small window of when you can still win championships with Steph being the guy. That's not to say Steph can't still win championships as maybe a number 2 guy, but it's going to be hard to do that in Golden State, just being on the space of the cap and all that. At this point for Golden State, I feel like the LeBron ship has mostly sailed. They may try in that one more time, maybe come January, try and go get LeBron, see if maybe. I doubt the Lakers will do it. At this stage in the game, it's Jimmy Butler or bust. It just is. I get those. They're like, Jimmy Butler. I mean, my man Alfred, shout out to my man Alfred. He was texting me last night about it. He's like, man, he's a malcontent everywhere he goes. It's always something with the Bulls and the Wolves, Sixers, and now it's Miami. I'm like, I get it. I do. I get it. But Jimmy Butler's not a long-term answer for the Warriors. Frankly, nothing should be a long-term answer for the Golden State Warriors. Steph is 36, going on 37, is still amazing. We saw what he did at the Olympics. He was clutch player of the year last year. Still one of the, I mean, without thinking twice, one of the 7 best players in basketball. And for Golden State in the last 5-6 seasons, got 1 title out of it. And that was mostly because Steph just turned into a gear against an elite defense of Boston, where it was like, oh my God, this dude will not be denied a ring in 2022. It's one of the greatest things I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes watching sports, watching what Steph Curry did in those 22 finals. And really throughout that playoff run with what we now see was this is Jordan Poole and a washed Clay, and Wiggins was good, but if Wiggins is your second best player, you probably have a lot of holes in your roster. Not a Porter Jr. hit some shots and played defense, but that was about where it ended. You owe it to Steph. Yeah, Jimmy Butler, but what's kind of been Jimmy Butler's biggest thing? Doesn't get along with young players. Well, the Warriors will probably have to trade. They will have to trade Jonathan Kuminga to get Jimmy Butler. And by the way, for the Warriors young players that are people like, oh, they're going to get yelled at by Jimmy. They get yelled at by Draymond. Will be an adjustment getting yelled at by Jimmy. Matter of fact, Jimmy might be slightly milder than Draymond in some ways in practice. I mean, that'd be a fun dynamic at practice to get to witness if you're Steve, well, maybe not if you're Steve Kerr, but if you're media and others. A shot creator who's reliable, not just reliable in the postseason. We literally call him Playoff Jimmy. He literally has a reputation for being pretty good player in the regular season, really productive in the postseason. He got into 2 finals in the last 6 seasons. If Jimmy Butler's your number 2 next to Steph, and you have Draymond, and you have, I'm in the minority. I still think Steve Kerr's an awesome coach. I think Warriors fans that think otherwise aren't watching the games with the right context. Nonetheless, you still got depth, Trace Jackson Davis, who can give you size, and others. It's Jimmy Butler or bust for Golden State. And if the Warriors, because they try to get Lauri Markkanen, they try to get Paul George, and the Clippers are doing bad business and ended up screwing themselves over. Classic Clippers. Not like they haven't tried to take swings before. But you don't have much time left if you're the Warriors. And just watching last night, it's like, gosh, I mean, Steph, I think about Steph Curry like this. It's like what I think about franchise quarterbacks in football. I don't want you to, okay, in the biggest moments, I want you to put on the Superman cape. I want Patrick Mahomes to go out and get a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter. I want Josh Allen to hurdle over somebody and throw a missile in the red zone for a game-winning touchdown. I want Lamar Jackson to use his legs and be efficient. I want Joe Burrow to be the most accurate quarterback. I want the greats to be great when it's time to be great. But I don't want them to have to be great every single play or every single night when it's like, if Steph's having a bad night, which he did the other night against Indiana, it's like, man, could somebody else take the load? And they don't have that. Jimmy Butler could. Get the ball to Jimmy, he'll get you a look. Mid-range, he'll get to the paint, he'll get to the free throw line. He can do that. He can handle the basketball. If you want to play Steph off ball, that'd be great. But the answer's not there right now. And it's currently constituted, and I said before the season, I said I think the Warriors are better than they were last year. Still maintain that. But they have no chance to win the Western Conference as currently constructed if Steph Curry does not have a legitimate all-star level co-star. Which, again, look up and down basketball. Every single title contender does. You look at the Western Conference, okay? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's got really a cast of guys, but Williams and Chet Holmgren and others. Heck, Caruso now has been tremendous for him. Okay, you look at teams like Dallas. Luka's got Kyrie. You look at Denver, who I'm starting to get a little skeptical about Denver, but I still believe in Jokic. Jokic's got Jamal Murray. You look up and down. I mean, Tatum is Brown. Like up and down the league, you've got co-star with superstar. The Warriors are one of the few that doesn't, or that don't. And so I think you're doing an organizational disservice to the greatest player in the history of your franchise if you're not able to land these guys. It's great to try. It's great to try and land Lauri Markkanen. And again, if the Clippers screw you over, they screw you over. You did your best. You did your due diligence. But you got to eventually connect on a home run. And the Warriors simply have not been able to do that the last few years. And if they don't land Jimmy, the window's probably shut for good. And maybe not even just for Jimmy, just for anybody, but Jimmy seems like the most likely option because according to Jimmy Butler, according to Shams from Jimmy, certainly not from his agent, at least so he says, it's Phoenix or it's Golden State for Jimmy Butler. Apparently the Lakers may get involved. We'll see kind of a West Coast battle there. All in for Jimmy Butler, and the Warriors are cooked for good. Patrick's a Lakers fan. You know what? I won't even do it in the tone that the movie has said. You guys can imagine it. Warriors, I guess I'm sort of doing it. Come out to play. I'm not even gonna repeat it. Classic scene from a cult movie. I recommend it. The Warriors to any movie fan. The Grinch stole Pittsburgh and Golden State's Christmas. Thanks, Patrick. Pat Riley said he's not trading Jimmy Butler. Yeah, I bet. I bet he's not trading Jimmy Butler. What? So he's gonna keep him? Yeah. Here's what I know. Jimmy's not gonna be a Heat after the trade deadline. That's what I do know. The question is he gonna be a Sun, a Warrior, or a Laker? Maybe somebody else will get involved for Jimmy Butler. Maybe a Denver Nuggets. I mean, I could see that. The Nuggets getting involved for Jimmy. I don't know if they have the assets to get him. They'd have to, I mean, they've gutted their franchise or gutted their roster as is. I don't know if they'd do it further. Jimmy is not going to be a Miami Heat by the end of the season. We enter the playoffs, Jimmy's going to be with somebody else. I just hope it's the Warriors because at this point, that's kind of our last hope. All right. So again, it's a Thursday show where because Christmas fell in the middle of the week, we did Bryson's Best 10 and Carving Up the Context on a Monday, which we usually do on a Wednesday. And because Thursday and Friday, there was the Thursday night football and you had the games yesterday, I had to talk about the games yesterday in football and in basketball, which, by the way, last NBA take, then we'll move on to what I was saying. Love what LeBron said after the game, after the Warriors-Lakers game last night, where he said, like, loving it. And people know LeBron is a huge NFL fan. LeBron could have been an all-time NFL legend if he could decide to stay with football. But he had a wrist injury in high school, stuck with basketball. I think that worked out quite well for him. But LeBron said after the game, love the NFL. Christmas, the NBA's day. And listen, Roger Goodell, see, Christmas falls on a Thursday next year. Goodell's going to be like, oh yeah, LeBron, let me schedule like 10 NFL games on Thursday. And he won't go that far, but there'll definitely be some Christmas Day action in the NFL because listen, the ratings actually just came out recently. Like Netflix showed it was the most streamed NFL games ever that we saw, the 2 Christmas Day games. NBA though, still in a bad day for them. Highest rate Christmas Day action in 5 years. So with all the stuff with the NBA, it's the product isn't as good and all this, we got good action. The product was good on Christmas, and that's the NBA needs the product to be good on Christmas. Opening night, which I didn't think it was an opening night. I thought it was great yesterday. All-Star game. That's gonna be kind of the next question. Again, I've staked my claim to this. I said this back when I was doing the show at Disney last week. I'm staking my claim to this. I think this All-Star game is going to shock people with how I'm not even going to act like it's going to be this. I'm not going to be a politician, overpromise, under-deliver. I'm not going to act like it's going to be the greatest All-Star game ever or All-Star event ever. Man, Adam Silver involving Chuck and Shaq and Kenny was genius. Genius for the All-Star game. Combine that with what I've been not reporting but speculating. It looks like that's going to come to fruition soon. That I've said this since July. I think it's going to age well. Before the All-Star game, yeah, we're at the dunk contest and the three-point contest, and we should seriously get rid of the skills competition. Nobody watches it. I believe we're going to have Splash Brothers reunite Steph and Clay in the Bay against you could guys call them the Splash Sisters. Caitlin Clark, Sabrina Ionescu. Given the Ionescu Steph Curry shootout last year and how popular that was and how entertaining it was, now you get the Splash Brothers back together. Now Ionescu comes back to try and reclaim that title. And then you get the biggest draw among young basketball players, Caitlin Clark. I'm staking my claim to this now. If I'm wrong, rip me to shreds for it. I am of the minority. I think this All-Star weekend in 2025, I think the NBA is going to crush it. Honest to God, I really believe that. And some of it is too, because the expectations are so low, just anything would be good. I don't think the NBA is going to put out just anything. The Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny Smith, but really Shaq and Chuck, if we're being honest. Love Kenny. Going up against each other, drafting their own teams. Those guys gonna be like, hey, dudes, you better go out and play hard. I'm not, Chuck's like, I ain't losing to Shaq, guys. Like, you better. I think it's gonna be a really good All-Star weekend. I really, really do. We're gonna have to wait. So that's another couple months away. After the Super Bowl, I think the NBA is gonna do really well. Anyways, though, this being a Thursday, and usually we do the show Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time. The holidays and traveling and whatnot has kind of complicated things. But back at the same time as usual today. No show tomorrow, so you know what that means. We're going to get straight into NFL picks because we got a game tonight between the Bears and the Seahawks. And then we got, obviously, a bunch of games. We got a triple header on Saturday and obviously some NFL action on Sunday, as always. So let's go and get the background music. Let's get into week NFL predictions. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So, first of all, I'm 1-1 this week. I took the Chiefs to win against my Steelers. I am objective, if nothing else. And although that almost gets undone by the fact that I took Houston to beat Baltimore because of the power of Beyonce. By the way, Beyonce, come on now. Crushed it. She is Beyonce after all. But I thought the power of Beyonce in Houston, they're at home. Maybe that's what they needed after the Tank Dell injury. And Baltimore came in and just said, no, that's cute. We're going to come in here and beat you up for 60 minutes. So I'm 1-1. Fascinating game tonight. Seattle Seahawks, Chicago Bears. Now, Seattle's a 4.5-point favorite on the road. Here's something that the line, you'll see where it's at 5, where I, again, fake bet it. The segment's called If I Were a Bettin Man, and this is not one of them, but I don't bet, but I set the line at 5, or took the line at 5. It's come down to 4.5. And the reason I think that is the Seahawks could win this game by 1,000 points. They could lose this game by 1,000 points, and it does not affect their playoff standing. Ultimately, what it comes down to for Seattle is the NFC West. Seattle is staking everything on the Los Angeles Rams losing on Saturday to Arizona. If the Rams lose to Arizona, Seahawks Rams for the division next week. With that said, so Seattle, the game means virtually nothing. I think in this spot, as bad as the Bears have been, 9 straight losses, Caleb has played, it's like Caleb's played fine, and there's no turnovers, but they're also not, obviously not winning games and whatnot. This is Caleb's last primetime game of the year. And I think this is the type, this is why I loved him out of USC for a number of reasons, that big games don't faze him. He's got the cool, calm, collected nature to say, or in some ways, the ability to say, hey, this will be the last time I play in front of a national audience this season. Just let it fly. Like, I could see the Caleb Williams interception streak coming to an end in this game and just saying, hey, I'm going all out. I'm throwing it all over the field. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, be ready because I'm throwing some straight rockets your way. And I think I think Chicago +5 is the obvious play. Give me the Seahawks because the Bears, there's something to be said about knowing how to win football games. That's what the Chiefs do better than anybody. The Bears are kind of the exact opposite. But Seattle wins 23-20. They want to have some good momentum going into that last game if, that game, it does end up being for the division against the Rams next week. But Chicago +5 to me at home, Thursday night, primetime. Caleb's going to want to let it all let loose for this game. Give me the Bears. Give me the Bears in the points. But Seattle doing 23-20. Triple header on Saturday. No college football action. So the NFL's like, thank you very much. We're going to put some games on there. Los Angeles Chargers, New England Patriots from Foxborough. The Chargers are a 4.5-point favorite in New England. So New England props the Patriots. One of my If I Were a Bettin Man games last week was New England +14 at Buffalo. Too many points, divisional game. Buffalo was flying too high after their game last week, or the week prior rather, against the Detroit Lions. So Patriots +14. They almost won the game. A couple plays go their way. New England gets the upset. Chargers come in, extra rest. Herbert played maybe his best game of the season against Denver last Thursday night, so that was really big for his confidence. Ladd McConkey is critical of that offense. Still showing an ability to try and be able to run the football. Obviously, I love their tackle combo. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, come on. It's about as good as it gets among young tackles in football. It's, to me, what I'm even watching with this game, because the Chargers are obviously better. There's a reason they're favored by 4.5 on the road. Gerard Mayo's in a rough spot. I love me some Gerard Mayo just because he's a Tennessee guy. Go Vols. This guy's on the hot seat because of the disorganized play, like just kind of a discombobulated style of business the Patriots appear to be running out there every Sunday, and he's not good at the press conference. Like, he doesn't always look prepared. If there's nothing else in the NFL, if you're a quarterback, coach, well, maybe not a kicker, anybody, staffer, you better be prepared. And Gerard Mayo looks like, I'm not sure if the moment's too big for him, whatever the case may be, but I'm pulling hard for the guy because he's a Tennessee guy, and I love VFLs, but it's just not working. I think the Chargers are going to take advantage of that. Jim Harbaugh's going to have those guys ready to go. Chargers, -4.5, 31-23. I believe that would wrap up a playoff spot if I'm not mistaken. But LA wins this game 31-23 over the New England Patriots. Yes, I didn't think they're going to put up a lot of points because New England's defense can be got. There's no doubt about that. Massive game. Probably the biggest one of the day. On Saturday is Denver and Cincinnati. Folks, this is the Bengals season right here. It's really been the Bengals season each of the last 3 weeks in which they've beaten, I believe, Dallas, Tennessee, and Cleveland. But if Denver wins, I believe they would lock up a playoff spot. And I do know this, the Bengals are done. Their season is over. And it's been an interesting conversation the last few weeks. Well, Cincinnati, if they're 7-8, but if they win out, which 2 tough games against Denver and against Pittsburgh. If the Broncos lose once, which we play them, and as long as the Colts and Dolphins don't win out, what do you know? The Cincinnati Bengals are playoff bound with Joe Burrow. And I'll tell you, if you're Buffalo, your reward for being the 2 seed, I gotta play freaking Burrow in the first round. Are you kidding me? Not what they want if you're the Buffalo Bills. Listen, I have questions about both these 2 teams' defense. Certainly Cincinnati's more. I think this is a spot where, again, we talked about extra rest for the Chargers. Well, the same could be said about Denver. Extra rest, extra time for an elite coach, Hall of Fame level coach, and Sean Payton to prepare against a bad Bengals defense. I get that. But, man, there's just certain athletes, folks, that have a sense of the moment, that understand when it's time. This is what Mahomes does better than anybody. Just when it's time to show up and play. When it's time to convert on 3rd down, it's time to be elite in the red zone, time to show up, play the biggest games, the biggest stages. Not many quarterbacks you want more than Joe Burrow. I'd say it's like Mahomes, and it's like a tie between Burrow and Allen. And by the way, we saw those 2 play in a playoff game, and Burrow outplayed Allen and beat him on the road. Cincinnati's going to get the job done against Denver. I have real questions. The Broncos defense has kind of gotten exposed the last few weeks after having a nice stretch of football. Cincinnati beats Denver 28-21 at home, and they keep their playoff hopes very alive. Unfortunately, going into week 18 against my Steelers, which I don't love. Thank God we're already in the playoffs. Otherwise, I feel real nervous about that one. Cardinals, Rams, NFC West showdown in SoFi. So it's pretty simple for LA. They win this game, win the NFC West, you're in the playoffs. And if you're Arizona, your season's over because you lost to Carolina. Washington won. The Cardinals are mathematically eliminated. They've been playing horrible football for about 6 weeks now. For the Rams, so they have. Boy, has it been Jekyll and Hyde for these guys the last 2 weeks. So, a few weeks ago against Buffalo, they dropped 44 on the Bills' heads. 12 against the Niners, in which they win a game in which they don't need to score a touchdown, evidently. And then last week against the Jets are going to vomit all over themselves. That's who they are. We'll put ourselves in position to convert on third down, be good in the red zone. Stafford's going to do what he's got to do. We win a game on the road on the East Coast. Short-ish week. On a Saturday, division rival. For the record, Arizona, I don't know if folks may not remember this game. Last time these two teams played was when was the first game that the Rams were really beat up in when they started the season slow. The Cardinals shellacked them 41-10. So that's going to live in the minds of a lot of Los Angeles Rams players. I think Kyron Williams has been amazing as of late, been running the football effectively. He's kind of been not Puka Nacua, not even Stafford in some instances. It's really been Kyron Williams who's been the lifeblood of that Los Angeles Rams offense. I think they sense the moment. Stafford, McVay, chance to win the division. Let's go and wrap it up right here. Give me the Rams minus 6.5. 26-14 over the division rival, the Arizona Cardinals. Rams win 26-14 over Arizona, and they will be NFC West champions and host a playoff game. They were my pick. I was one of the few that took the Rams to win the division. I think they'll get the job done, wrap it up on Saturday night. Move on to Sunday's action. What do we got first? Oh, yeah. New York Jets, Buffalo Bills, AFC East showdown in Buffalo. The Bills are 9.5-point favorites. Listen, the drama continues with the Jets. Now there's a beef between Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson. You just had the recent report not too long ago that apparently Woody Johnson scouts players based on their Madden rating. That explains a lot now in hindsight for how poorly the Jets have been run. I mean, Aaron's going after people's vax status, which literally not a freaking soul cares about. Well, I guess he and RFK did. The point is, no one really cares about that. It's constant chaos with the Jets. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, it's, yeah, we're playing good football. We're on a heater over the last 2.5 months, but we did not play our best football whatsoever. We kind of overlooked the Patriots, and if not for a couple bounces of the ball, New England could have won that game in our home place in Buffalo. We're going to put ourselves in a position to be successful. Getting the Bills in this game 34-16 over the Jets. Not close. Jets defense has gotten absolutely torched the last few weeks. Buffalo's kind of due for a big game defensively. Again, 16 isn't amazing, but the way Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense has been showing somewhat of a pulse as of late, sure. Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for the Bills to make a statement. Give me Buffalo 34-16 over the division rival, the New York Jets. Titans and Jaguars won't spend much time on this because both teams have the combined 6 wins. Listen, Titans are favored -1. It's Mason Rudolph versus Mac Jones. What do you want me to do? Tennessee gave up over 300 yards rushing last week against the Indianapolis Colts. The game of the Titans almost came back and tied the game late, or at least could have gotten the ball back to try and tie the game. Meanwhile, the Jaguars just lost to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Jags are bad as is with Trevor. Adding Mac Jones to that mix is just going to make it worse. Titans win this game, division rivalry. Tennessee's due for a win, 23-20. What do we do? Patrick, before we get into our next game, Patrick's in the comments. Ayahuasca Rodgers. Just catch a jet and leave New York. Do us all a favor. Just retire. Kicking along with Tut, flexing, laughing, and smirking on Pat McAfee. You know what? I'm going to cut you off there, Patrick, and here's why. I've said this on the show. I've been public about this. I don't want Aaron Rodgers to retire. He is great content. I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that genuinely. He's great content for the show. Not that the NFL is going to have problems supplying us with that, because they are the NFL after all, but I want Aaron to stay around as long as he can, because if nothing else, he is compelling. Annoying as whiz at times, but compelling. All right, it's now time for my favorite segment of the week. It is called
Bettin Man.
Hi, we're at Bettin Man. I am looking at the NFC South and a matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And boy, the tides turned for Tampa. Tides, Buccaneers, didn't mean for that. No pun intended. Buccaneers are favored by 8 in this game. Folks, Carolina's the play. What are we talking about? Listen, Tampa Bay comes in after a rough loss against Dallas. Sure, they'll be looking to make a statement. against a team they're familiar with. Divisional rivalries, to me, the magic number tends to be like that 5.5 point mark. If two teams are relatively close, unless we're talking like the Eagles and the Giants or something, that's the exception. But if we're talking a team like, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that lost to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys last week with an opportunity to really create some separation between they and the Falcons, all of a sudden the Falcons, with Michael Penix Jr., control their fate to win the NFC South. Must win for Tampa, but for Carolina, I don't know, Bryce Young had one of the best games of his career last week. Bryce Young has been objectively better than his draft compadre, C.J. Stroud, over the last 7-8 games. They've been running the football really effectively. Chuba Hubbard, all of a sudden, if you got Chuba Hubbard in your fantasy playoffs, you are in good shape because that man is running the rock. Divisional game, 8 points? Really? 8? You're giving me 8 points? Yeah. If I were a Bettin Man, give me the Panthers and the 8 points. High-scoring game. I'll give Tampa the benefit of the doubt because they need this one desperately. 27-24. Buccaneers win, but 8 points, way too many. Give me Carolina. The way they've been playing as of late, okay, that offense has a real kind of identity. Run the football, play action. Bryce is going to move around a little bit. Yeah, Carolina and the points, Buccaneers to win. Probably the worst game of the week, so I'm going to spend less than 30 seconds on it. Raiders and Saints from New Orleans, which the Super Bowl will be there in a couple months, so at least they'll get to see some good football at some point in the Bayou. Look, Vegas won last week against the Jags. They get to play another bad team. The Saints are missing like everybody. Carr, Kamara, I think Olave's out. They're a mess. Do we have it up here? Do we have the Raiders graphic up here? I don't think we do. I apologize. That's fitting. That shows you how big of a game it is. Go and put up the graphic right here, folks. Okay, here we go. Raiders win over the Saints by a final score of 20-10. Raiders -1. I guess it's not even the Bleak that game because I didn't even want to distinguish it with a name. I mean, what are we talking about? All right, moving on to Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles from the city of brotherly love. The Eagles are a 7-point favorite. I had them. Where I took the game was 6.5. So you're going to have two backup quarterbacks facing off against each other in all likelihood. Obviously, Cooper Rush for the Cowboys, who's been playing quite well as of late. And then Kenny Pickett, former Steeler, in all likelihood for Philadelphia because Jalen Hurts suffered the concussion early last week against Washington. Now, the biggest news from this game is that, according to reports, CeeDee Lamb has been shut down for the season. I think he has a shoulder injury. The Cowboys are like, hey, we're mathematically eliminated. Let's not mess up CeeDee physically, that could compromise his offseason. Shut CeeDee Lamb down for the season. And as we know, as I've said oftentimes when I've talked about Dak Prescott, that's their offense. It's Dak and CeeDee Lamb. Well, the last few weeks, it's mostly been Cooper Rush and CeeDee Lamb with, I will say, Rico Dowdle, been around the football well as of late. Mike McCarthy, I think that win against Tampa pretty much locked in that McCarthy's going to be back next year, which I'm iffy on because I've always said McCarthy's better than his haters think and not as good as his supporters think he is. He's somewhere around like 13th, 14th best coach territory. So solid. Don't think he can get you next level, but if you're Jerry Jones, who the heck's taking the Cowboys job? McCarthy's your best bet. Look, Philadelphia's at home. This game actually got flexed out of the America's Game of the Week for Green Bay and Minnesota. That game later. Cannot wait for Green Bay, Minnesota. What a matchup that is in many. Look, Dallas got their big win. That was kind of like I feel like that was like the last stand for the Cowboys because they play Philly and Washington to end the season. There's going to be some playoff ramifications for both of those teams. Philly's still trying to stay alive for the 1 seed potentially. Give me the Eagles in this game, 24-16. One score game. It's a divisional game, but 6.5 feels about right. Kenny Pickett actually looked fine last week. Not great, but serviceable against the Washington defense. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles 24-16. Dallas just won't have enough offense without CeeDee Lamb to be able to get the job done. This is the biggest Bryson's Bleak bet if I were a Bettin Man game combo ever, because those segments could run like counterintuitive to one another, but it shows you how little faith I have in the losing team. So, if I were a Bettin Man, Indianapolis -7.5 against the New York Giants. Look, I don't think Anthony Richardson is a long-term NFL quarterback. Not franchise quarterback, not the Colts quarterback, NFL quarterback. Inaccurate. Great deep ball, intermediate stuff. He's objectively horrible. Moves great, but if this kid can't work with Shane Steichen, don't know who he can work with. Steichen's one of the best, smartest young coaches, offensive coaches in the NFL. With that said, against a division rival with whom they're innately familiar with, they just ran for 300 yards against the Tennessee Titans. on the road, playoff hopes on the line. Colts could potentially, if Denver goes down to the Cincinnati Bengals, all of a sudden the Colts are like, hey, here we go. We're still very much alive to potentially make a playoff spot here. I think, especially against the Giants, New York's trying to lose. We do realize New York's trying to get Shedeur Sanders, right? Like, I can see a spot where Dable is all but guaranteed. Hey, Brian, you're back next year. You're our coach. You're going to coach Shedeur Sanders and Malik Neighbors. The Giants are the worst team in the NFL. We've known that for a while now. Look, it's not even so much the number as it is. It's the Giants. Like, take literally anybody to cover against the Giants. Colts minus 7.5 in blowout fashion, 30-13 over New York. Colts stay alive for a playoff spot in the AFC. For the sake of the viewing product, I do hope that the Colts don't make the playoffs. Nothing against Indianapolis. It's a lovely city. But at the same time, I would rather see a Joe Burrow or a Bo Nix in the 7th seed. No question about that. All right, moving on to what we got next. We got the Dolphins and we got the Browns as our next game. This is the, if I can put this up here, this is the Bryson Bleak bet game. It's the one game each and every week I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting. But hey, you got to predict them all. So look, Cleveland is at home this game. So what do we know about the Miami Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa in particular? They are not as good as desired in chilly circumstances. Well, last I checked, this game is going to be played on December 29th. And last I checked, Cleveland around that time of year, around that date of year, isn't warm. A matter of fact, next to Lake Erie, it's one of the coldest, probably one of the coldest areas of the country at times at this point in the year. Now, the game day weather says like 46-ish, but we know Tua, in chilly temperatures, under 50 degrees has a losing record. It's going to be that in Cleveland, Ohio, especially this is a afternoon kickoff. It's not a 1 p.m. kickoff, which matters. Afternoon kickoff. Problem is the Browns are awful. DTR, is DTR their starter this week? I forget who the Browns starter is this week. Miami playoff hopes on the line, minus 6.5. I guess if you tell me the Browns covered, if you told me, God forbid, knock on wood, that, the Browns will lose their starter and Jameis Winston comes in and does something, I wouldn't be shocked. I guess I'll take Miami minus 6.5. I don't love it, not in cold weather, but because of how bad the Browns are, I'll take it. But I don't love it. But I'll take it, but I don't love it. You get what I'm saying here. All right, now time for my final game for my favorite segment. It is called, once again, Bettin Man. If I were a Bettin Man, game of the week, baby. Cannot wait for this one. Not just because I have family members, my sister, with rooting interest. How good is this? Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings from Minneapolis. The Vikings are a ever so slight home favorite, -1. Are the Vikings favored in this game? So look, Green Bay is not, as far as it looks, they could still maybe catch Minnesota for the 5 seed if the Vikings lose this game, lose to Detroit. I mean, that's plausible. It could happen. But at the end of the day, the Packers are almost certainly locked in as the 6th seed in the NFC, which I think is actually where I had them before the season. So there you go. But here's what I've noticed about Green Bay as of late. So funny enough, Jordan Love signed that contract with Toyota for the Toyotathon thing. Someone on Twitter said, hey, when Toyotathon starts, Jordan Love gets it going. I don't know if there's any, any connectivity with that. Doubt it. Point is, Jordan Love's second half season has not turned the football over, playing efficient. The Packers limiting his attempts. They're saying, hey, we are kind of like Baltimore a little bit. We're a Josh Jacobs running the football up your face led team who just so happens to have some of those talented wide receiving groups in the NFL, young wide receiving groups. Dobbs, Watson is beat up. We're not sure if he's going to be able to go for this game, so that could really make a difference, but you still have Dobbs, and you got Wicks. And by the way, Musgrave is back this week. Packers have 2 really good tight ends. Tucker Kraft's been balling, so you get Musgrave back this week against the Minnesota Vikings. That's huge. Josh Jacobs is the lifeblood of that Green Bay Packers offense. Again, Minnesota is one of the most talented offenses of football. Sam Darnold at this point, unless he just collapses over the last 3 games, I think Minnesota would be better served. I hate the franchise tag, but bare minimum, keeping him on the franchise tag. Like, he's just been too good, too productive with Kevin O'Connell, with this offense, to just let him walk on the open market for nothing and then bank on, hey, hope JJ McCarthy's the answer when we've never seen him play a meaningful snap in the NFL. But Green Bay's on a roll. I'm telling you, I'm as high on the Packers as I've been all season long. Give me Green Bay if I were a Bettin Man. Packers +1, 27-23 over Minnesota on the road. I'm telling you, I thought the Rams were my NFC title game pick to play Detroit. I don't feel good about the Rams against Green Bay. I'm just going to tell you right now, in that first playoff game, I don't know who I'd go in that spot. You know I love me some Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, but man, Green Bay's balling. Josh Jacobs, just going to put this out there. If I had an MVP ballot, he'd come the top five. He'd come the top five. Josh Jacobs has been that good. All right, last game. Of course, you may have not noticed. May have noticed we haven't gotten to this one yet. We're finishing on a bang. It's my upset of the week. In a battle of the rookie quarterbacks, give me the Atlanta Falcons and my man Michael Penix Jr. over the Washington Commanders, 29-27. Falcons +4.5, and the outright win over Washington. Here's why. Washington's defense stinks. When you consider the fact that the Commanders were playing a Philadelphia Eagles team that loses Jalen Hurts early to a concussion. Okay, Kenny Pickett has a passer rating in the 70s, and yet somehow, some way, you give up 33 points. How does that happen? And by the way, if not for Devontae Smith's drop, Jaden Daniels does not have that tremendous game-winning drive he did at the end when he threw his 5th touchdown pass to Jamison Crowder to win the game. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying it because when you look at a kid in Michael Penix Jr., whose stat line against the New York Giants was nothing to go crazy about, to write home about. He had an interception that was not his fault. Kyle Pitts had one of the most embarrassing drops of the year, but he was accurate. He had a zip on the football. He moved well. And one thing I loved about Penix out of college, and this, folks, this matters in the NFL, especially with a franchise quarterback. Penix played a lot of big games last year in college. Oregon twice, Texas, Michigan in the Natty. He didn't play that well against Michigan, but who did? But he's not scared of the big spotlight. He's not scared of the big stage. He's not scared to go on the road to Washington. The Commanders, maybe they'll have sealed up a playoff spot by then, but in position where Washington's trying to put them to elevate their seeding in the NFC. With those weapons, with Drake London, run the football, 2 good running backs, good O-line in Atlanta. Defense been playing better as of late. Atlanta's defense hasn't been very good this season. Starting to come on as of late. I'm telling you, I liked Jaden Daniels a lot out of this draft. I loved Penix out of this draft. I'm doubling and tripling down. Upset of the week. Atlanta wins this one. Also, partly, too, because I did pick the Falcons to win the NFC South. So, this will obviously help their cause. Atlanta 29. Weird score here, but listen, it's the NFL, Week 17. Weird stuff happens. Falcons 29. Commanders 27. Atlanta wins this one. Michael Penix Jr. gets his first signature moment in the NFL. I think we're going to see a great duel between two of the best rookie quarterbacks, certainly that we've seen in some time with Jaden Daniels. In the case of Penix, he won't have a very long rookie season, but what we will see, I think, will be something to write home about as we go into the 2025 season. All right, that is all the time here for today's show. I appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Monday. No show tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. And just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Be sure to go check us out on the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. We got 8 o'clock spot, speaking of which, on the Grid coming up in about 40 minutes of the time of this live recording of the show. Check us out there. Best sports game show in town. I'm the host / judge / moderator. We got 4 great contestants, 4 great topics for these guys to debate and discuss and figure out who has the best take over the course of about 45-minute show. Tune in. It's a very lighthearted show with the best sports takes you'll see in town. So tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time tonight in about 30 to 45 minutes from now the 8 o'clock spot live on the Grid Network YouTube channel. All right, we will see you guys on Monday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. Because it doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans on a day-to-day basis in this country. And no matter what anybody tries to tell you, oh, there's only one solution to the problem, or oh, there's only one. There's only, all the nonsense we hear about the gun debate. We have a lot of issues that need a number of nuanced solutions to address it. Please contact your local state representatives and officials to go after this problem, because it's inexcusable. Been passionate about this for a while, and I hopefully we can continue the fight to address it. We'll see you on Monday. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. And hopefully the Steelers show a pulse before it's all said and done. Who knows? Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.